If you're like me and love using Arc Warlock in PvE activities, then you're gonna love this build. With this build, you're gonna have no problem doing insane amounts of DPS to bosses and enemies, and all you need is Chaos Reach and one of my new favorite exotics known as the Geomag Stabilizers. This exotic can literally make your Chaos Reach last double the time, which means that you're gonna be doing a ridiculous amount of damage to any boss that you go up against. I've experimented with this build in a lot of different bosses, and I can say that this build will work anywhere. The main bosses I use this build at so far are Nezarec and Roll, and all I can say is I've had no problem dropping between 2.5 to 3 million damage each kill. Me and one of the teams I just did vow with actually one phased Roll, and I dropped 3.6 million damage. And don't forget that I'm a PvP player, so if I can do it, that means you can do it. But make sure you guys stick around to the end of the video because I will be showing my exact DPS rotation and showing you how I use this build to its full potential. So without further ado, my name is Apoxy, and welcome back to another one of my build videos. Starting with my subclass, obviously like I said before, I'm running Chaos Reach. This super is insane and it works really well with the exotic we have paired up with it. So you guys gotta trust me, this super is so fun in PvE and it does so much damage. Moving on to my aspects, I like to run Arc Souls. Arc Souls are great. When you cast a Rift, you create an Arc Soul and all your teammates will get it, and you just do crazy amounts of damage to the boss. And while you're amplified, your Arc Souls are supercharged and gain an increased fire rate. Everyone likes to have an Arc Soul, so definitely use this. The other aspect I like to run is Lightning Surge. While sliding, you activate your charged melee ability to blink forward, calling down lightning strikes that jolt targets. I like running this aspect just because it's really fun for your ad clear roll and helps get rid of a lot of enemies that are in one space. But honestly, you can run the other one known as Electrostatic Mind. When you defeat targets with arc abilities or defeat jolted or blinded targets, it creates an Onic Trace. So honestly, depending on the activity, you can really change this up. If you're doing an ad clear roll, you could use Lightning Surge, but if you're not, you could use Electrostatic Mind if you just want to focus more on DPS and being amplified. But yeah, really a personal preference. Moving on to my abilities, starting with my grenade, I like to run Storm Grenade just because it calls down a lightning storm and does a lot of damage over time. But another choice would be Pulse Grenade. Those are probably the main two I would use. Chain Lightning, obviously, it's the only thing you can do. An extended range melee that jolts your targets, and Chain Lightning to nearby targets, and while you're amplified, it creates an additional set of chains on your jolted targets. And personally, I like to run Burst Glide, but obviously you can change it around. And you can either run Healing Rift or Empowering Rift, but if you're in a team that has Well, Healing Rift is honestly the better bet because Empowering Rift, group activity, and there's Well and everything, you really don't need it. But if there's not a Well, obviously you can run Empowering Rift if you want to get the extra weapon damage. But Empowering Rift will not stack with Well or Bubble, so based on the situation or activity you're in, you can really change this up. But yeah, that's all for my abilities. Now moving on to my fragments, which is definitely the most important part of the build. First, I only have the Spark of Shock. It just makes it so that your arc grenades are able to jolt targets and takes away a ton of your discipline. This aspect is important because jolting targets is just free damage and it's very nice for ad clear and just doing damage in general. And the second one, we have the Spark of Magnitude. Basically just makes your grenade last longer. So if you're using a lightning grenade, pulse grenade, or storm grenade, each of the grenades I mentioned will have about a 50% extended duration, which is amazing to have, especially if you're trying to get as much damage in as possible. Moving on to my third fragment, we have Spark of Instinct. This fragment is honestly interchangeable and isn't too important, but for a certain situation like ad clear, this is very nice. While you're quickly wounded, taking damage will emit a burst of damaging arc energy that'll jolt targets. So basically, if you're in a situation where there's a lot of enemies around you, you just get free damage when you're low in health. You just do a bunch of damage to them, and when paired with your melee, it's just going to be super easy kills. And then the last fragment is a very important one. It is called Spark of Ions. Defeating a jolted target creates an Ionic Trace, and with how much we're able to jolt enemies with this build, getting Ionic Traces is going to be super easy, which means that you're always going to be amplified, which is what we want. Because being amplified is very beneficial. It grants you plus 50 mobility, increases your sprint speed, your slide distance, jump height, and grants improved weapon handling for 15 seconds. That's all I have to show you for my subclass. All the abilities, fragments, and aspects work really well together. And now I'm going to move on to my stats and armor mods. Starting with my stats, I like to run decently high resilience just because we are going to be fighting bosses and, doing endgame activities. So it's nice to have some pretty decently high resilience. I like to have my recovery very high. I love being able to regain my health back as soon as possible. And it also helps you get your class ability back faster. And I also like to run pretty high discipline. I would probably get this to 100 if I could, but my armor isn't the best just because it reduces your grenade cooldown. And I like being able to throw my grenades out as much as possible because it's free damage. But yeah, that's all for my stats. Moving on to my armor mods, for my helmet, I'm running Powerful Friends and Radiant Light. These work really well together because it gives you armor charges for every orb of power you pick up. I like to run Heavy Ammo Finder, of course. And then for my gauntlets, I'm running Impact Induction 2 times. Causing damage with a melee attack will reduce your grenade cooldown. And I'm running Firepower. Your grenade final blows will create an orb of power, which is very beneficial, especially since Storm Grenade does so much damage, it'll probably end up killing every ad you throw it on. And then for my chest piece, I'm just running 2 Solar Reserves, but obviously you change this on whatever your heavy and your energy energy ammo are. And for my gauntlets, I'm running 2 solar weapon surges and a solar holster. Your solar weapons gain a small bonus to damage while I have any armor charge, and the holster gradually reloads your stowed solar weapons over time. And then lastly, for my bond, I'm running time dilation, which your decaying armor charge now have a longer duration, just because of the fact that these do decay now, so having this is important. And I like to run Reaper. After using your class ability, your next weapon final blow will spawn an overpower. So yeah, that's all my mods. The only thing I would say is make sure that these line up with whatever weapons you're using. I like to try to make sure my energy matches up with my heavy, just so it's easier to have the mods match up together. Moving on to my weapons, for your kinetic slot, it really doesn't matter what you use. You can honestly use another fusion rifle, anything you want, double special, whatever fits your needs. For my secondary, I like to run a fusion. I'm using a Cartesian with Vorpal on it. Any good fusion rifle will work well in this spot. And then for my rocket launcher, I'm running the Apex Predator with Reconstruction, which is a very nice perk, especially with this build. All this stuff together does so much damage. I'm going to show you guys my rotation soon, and you're going to see how crazy it is. But really, you can use any rocket launcher, any fusion. I just like these with the perks they have. They fit really well. And when you have that stowed weapon mod, the whole time I'm casting my super long Chaos Reach, both of my weapons are reloading. So by the time I'm done, both of my weapons are basically fully loaded and I can get DPS and right again. But yeah, that's really all there is to my build. I showed you my subclass, my mods, my stats, and my weapons. So now I'm gonna hop straight into showing you guys my DPS rotation and show you why Reconstruction on this and having my stowing mods is so important and makes this build do so much damage. I'm going to be demonstrating my DPS rotation on Cali. Of course, we're cheesing it because we're farming the red borders. You know how the Destiny community is. We always like to do everything the easy way. I always like to start my fight with a storm grenade and then I fire 2 rockets. And since my rocket has Reconstruction, I do not reload it. I switch right to my fusion, which is my Cartesian. I shoot the whole mag and then I'm able to switch back to my rocket and it's fully loaded. I can shoot 2 more. And then I hop straight into my Chaos Reach, which goes forever since I have the Geomags. And then by the time my Chaos Reach is done, my rockets will be fully loaded and I can just rinse and repeat that process. And that's how Apoxy does his DPS rotation. As I said earlier, I've tested this setup at a bunch of different bosses, and this is the best rotation I could come up with. The damage this build puts out is insane. The Chaos Reach just absolutely shreds bosses. Basically any boss I was using this build at, I was dropping between 2.5 million to 3 million DPS. And even at Nezarec, where half the shots don't hit because he likes to jump around like a madman. So that shows his build is very reliable, especially for an Arc Warlock build. I feel like I don't see them very often, so that's why I decided to make this, because I just started using this exotic and I wanted to try out something new. Since I like Arc Warlock in PvP so much, I wanted to try to find a way to implement it into PvE, and this is the best I could come up with. Yeah, if you guys want to see it again, this is all my subclass stuff, my fragments, Spark of Shock, Spark of Magnitude, Spark of Instinct, Spark of Ions. I like to run Lightning Surge or Arc Soul with a Storm Nade, Chain Lightning, Burst Glide, and a Healing Rift. But yeah, that's really all I have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this build and decided to use it yourselves. If you did, make sure to leave a like and a comment. And if you haven't already, make sure that subscribe button for more future videos from me. And until next time, peace.